Why is it that expert English speakers and high-scoring IELTS candidates use so much language that seems to be useless? So before I answer this question, I want to ask you a question. What percentage would you say of an average sentence is the core message of the sentence? Now have a think about that for a moment. So how many of the words in a sentence are giving the listener the message that they need to hear? Well, as I'm going to show you, it's actually a very small amount. And there are lots of reasons for why. So let's look at an example, which I hope will show you what I mean. Now, I want you to imagine that you are at your school, university, or place of work, and a visitor arrives, and they need to find room 607. They're going to have to walk up to the receptionist, and they're going to have to find out where the room is. Now think, what would they say? Now, they probably need to ask, where is room 607? 4 words. But let's think about what would happen if the person actually did this. Let's imagine the person walks into the building, they walk up to the receptionist and they say, where is room 607? Sounds quite rude, doesn't it? They probably need to say something first to make the receptionist understand that they are not being rude. So maybe they say something like this. Excuse me, where is room 607? But even then, that also sounds a little bit hard. Now, as many of you will know, when we're being polite in English, we often need to add extra words to soften our questions. A good way to think about it is this. We will often ask if we can ask a question. It's a very useful framework to follow. So instead of saying, where is room 607, we could say something like this. Can you tell me where room 607 is? So we're not asking the question, we are asking if we can ask the question. And if you do this, you will sound much more polite when you're speaking in English. So we've moved then from where is room 607 to, excuse me, could you tell me where I can find room 607, please? Something like this. The point is, the main message in that sentence is actually very short. The rest of the words we use, most of the words that we use, are not about this message. Instead, they are about our relationship with the person that we are speaking to. They're telling them that we are friendly, that we are polite, that we are not being rude, that we are asking them for help. These words are doing all of these different jobs. What they are not doing is finding out the answer to the question, where is room 607? The point is, this extra language is not useless. It actually has a lot of very important roles. It's sending messages to the person that we're speaking to about our mood, about our position. Are we being aggressive? Are we being friendly? Are we asking a question? All of these little bits of information that help us to communicate with the person, but aren't about the main message. And this is a hugely important part of any language, and English is no exception. So why does this matter for you and your IELTS assessment? Well, it matters in 2 ways, really, and they both relate to this same idea. The important thing to remember is that most words that we use in a conversation with another human are not about the core message. And that's okay. We're sending all kinds of other signals. Now, you don't need to think about all of the signals that are being sent, but you need to remember that Your job is not to give the most efficient message possible. The examiner is not judging you on how precise and accurate each one of your pieces of speech is. They're going to be judging you on your whole ability to communicate. And that means lots of vocabulary and lots of words which aren't necessarily related to the message. So don't worry if you think you are talking about things which aren't 100% on the main point you want to make. That's probably going to be okay. The more important thing for you is to remember that the examiner is going to be doing the same thing to you. In the questions that the examiner gives you, they're going to use lots of words and phrases which aren't about the main message. So you can filter out a lot of what they say and just pick out the key question that they are going to be using. Now, it's a very basic point, but it's one that I think can be very useful for many IELTS candidates to remember. Most language in the exam is not going to be the key messages that you're sending to the examiner and the examiner is sending to you. Instead, they are the normal bits of language that we use around our messages to send signals to the person we're communicating with. So how does this affect us in our IELTS exam? Well, it's actually quite a small point that I want to make, but it's really important for you to understand. The way that we communicate when we're speaking and the way we communicate when we're writing are different. You are not giving the examiner the same kind of message when you speak as when you are writing. It's okay if there are lots of extra bits of vocabulary and words around the edge. We need to have those for effective English communication. So when you are talking to the examiner, don't treat it as if you are writing to them. Very important. You need to practice with real speaking and real communication as you prepare, because if it does sound as if it is a written message, you will not be performing well. The speech will not sound natural, because all of this language we've just been talking about is part of natural speech. The other thing to remember is the examiner is doing the same thing. The examiner is an effective English speaker, which means they're going to be adding in this useless vocabulary around the edge to send the message in a polite or friendly way. That's it. So if you don't understand every single word that the examiner has said, never mind. It doesn't really matter. The core message is probably going to be quite short. So hopefully that answers the question that many people have. Why do native speakers use so much useless vocabulary? And more importantly, how does it affect me in my IELTS speaking assessment? So it's a very short video today, but I still hope it was useful for you. And until next time, I wish you all the very best of luck in your preparations for your IELTS assessment.